Welcome back to News and Views with your guest host Tahir Maepa. I'm quite excited now with this coming conversation because this is one of the very interesting subjects that had caused some form of controversy some years back. Talking nuclear energy, and I'm hosting now my brother Qaaim Moyeni, a seasoned lawyer from Johannesburg. And I must say that Qaaim is one of the people that we established the PSCU with. We spent hours and hours fighting to get PSU off the ground to be registered, and the PSU has benefited from his legal mind, and it's still benefiting, and he's been doing it for free without any charges, and I praise Allah for that because if I had to pay, I wouldn't be able to afford it. Habibi, welcome, 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 welcome. Habibi, you just returned back from Russia, of all places, Russia, and you have ventured. I mean, we have always known you to be a corporate lawyer, and obviously, corporate is vast. It cuts across different industries and different sectors and so forth. Basically, it's one of those untransformed and very difficult areas to navigate yourself around as a black person, whether being it a lawyer or as an executive. It's quite hostile because of it's mainly white dominated, and obviously they don't want to give any space to anyone. But whereas now you go into nuclear, what in the heavens is happening here? Tell us more about this venture that you are busy with before we go into the details of what happened in Russia.
Jazakallah, Habibi. I'm very honored and pleased to be here being interviewed by you. You have been someone who has had a personal observation point of my life, ever since I was in university, going to corporate, going to taking me out of corporate, putting me into labor. And from there now I'm venturing to the space of nuclear law. So essentially, how I got into the space, my father is a nuclear scientist who works for one of the SOEs in South Africa that deals with the disposal of waste of nuclear and other radioactive substances. So he used to normally engage with me with this specific industry and the complexities around it and the misconceptions around it. And I found it quite fascinating, and we get to spend a lot of time talking about it. But when at one time he went to Vienna, and when he went to Vienna for a conference in Austria, which was a nuclear energy conference, there he met a particular lawyer. And when he met that lawyer is specialized in nuclear. And they engaged and they spoke, and he told him, my son is actually a lawyer. And, I didn't know there were lawyers in the space. And this guy was told him that, yes, it's a very niche market, and there isn't much lawyers who are aware of this or know about it, but it's a very complex space, and lawyers actually need to participate in the ecosystem of nuclear energy. So when he came back, we spoke about it, and I started doing my own research, and I started engaging in the different courses and the few information that is there online. And I particularly got an interest in how it played, how nuclear energy specifically with regards to its legislation and regulations in South Africa, because considering that we're actually the only African country that has a functioning nuclear power plant. And I did my research on that, and I found it quite fascinating, not only with regards to its contribution and the importance of it in terms of its place with regards to a country's stability, a country's economic activity, a country's growth and development. But more especially, I saw how there is a lack and of the role of lawyers in participating in the space. And I saw
Mm,
that that's how actually I feel the government and this is something that is common in most African countries, that the
mm,
government has little support in terms of demystifying all these misconceptions. And scientists are not the people to do it. Physicists are not the people to do it. They are more of the technical aspects of it. And the lawyers are the one who play a vital role in terms of drafting the legislations, drafting the regulations, the policies, and essentially, facilitating the relationship between the public and the government. So I took quite an interest in that, and I also took quite an interest in I love complex things, and I love how ultimately I want to see the benefit leading to the people, and how
yeah.
does it benefit the people. And nuclear is a space that we are not aware of. It's still sleeping on, and it is a key factor. I mean, the whole Cold War that happened between Russia and America was based on nuclear.
Mm.
And now even today, countries are considered powerhouses on the basis of the nuclear technology that they have.
But
So
Habibi, whilst you're on that point, I think the misconception, as you put it, of what we have with nuclear, we always associate nuclear with bombs and destruction and all that, which is true. Nuclear, if not handled properly, it can bring catastrophe to any country. Now, you were recently in Russia, and I know you were one of the few young people across the globe who made a presentation at the Nuclear Education Summit. Tell me, what was your key takeaways from that conference that you attended?
my key takeaway, exactly the point that you are raising. There is a movement in terms of advocating for nuclear and demystifying the misconceptions around it, and our role in ensuring that we utilize it as a source, especially for power, and as an alternative source, especially for power, meaning electricity, and any form of energy, and any form of development of medicine and development of various technologies utilizing
Mm,
nuclear energy as the primary source. It can lead to a huge development for many countries. And so my key takeaway and my experience there rather was to see how far uh, many of these countries are going and utilizing nuclear for the development of its people. I mean, in Moscow alone, I was in Moscow, and I observed how functional and how organized, and how many jobs, and how efficient it is. And when you boil it down to what it is that actually is driving all of this, it's the power plants that are there, because energy ultimately is the key foundation for any development of any country. And you must take note that Russia is under sanctions, but even within those sanctions, it is functioning, and it's developing, and it's moving, and its people are really living a standard that is way above countries that are so-called, developed and so-called first world. And so I was quite surprised. I really was. And I realized that it means, there is an agenda that is being driven by certain parties to ensure that we have a misconceived idea of what
mm,
nuclear is, and to limit it to this idea of bombs and all of that. But particularly here in South Africa, if you take into consideration the fact that just last year, Minister Ramokgopa was in the process of publishing a bill which would have led to the procurement of 2,500 megawatts and the establishment and development of a nuclear power plant in PE Jeffreys Bay. And the DA and many other NGOs opposed that and took the government to court. And Minister Ramokgopa didn't even defend it at court. He just withdrew the bill. And when you sit down and read through the papers and listen to what the DA and what these NGOs are saying, they are hanging on the misconceptions that are surrounding nuclear. Funny enough, these NGOs and the DA, they come from the Western Cape. And the Western Cape, and Cape Town specifically, is one of the most developed cities in the world. And at the crux of it is because it's powered by a nuclear power plant. They're utilizing nuclear energy to ensure there's so much economic activity. Everything we love about Cape Town, at the crux of it, is the nuclear power plant, which was built in 1970, Quebec. And all the things, all the misconception, one of the things that they're saying is that it will affect the animals and the livestock. And when you go to Quebec, you find animals are living there
mm,
freely. Another thing they say is that the cost implication is very expensive to build a power plant. If you look at the cost benefit analysis of Quebec, what Quebec cost us and the benefit of it all those years, it's immense. They speak of obviously the accidents that happened like Fukushima in Japan, but they neglect what is happening here in South Africa, with Quebec hasn't experienced anything, because there has been regulation and there has been a facilitation of ensuring that everything is done right. There's proper development, proper research that is backed by all of this to limit it to misconceptions that are utilized to derail and delay government. So my experience in Russia made me understand the mission that and how big it is and how important it is that we need to undergo in all different spheres. And part of the thing that I said in my presentation was to make them aware that in this nuclear energy ecosystem, where there is a focus on physicists and scientists and chemists and engineers, they need to include lawyers. They need to include journalists. They need to
mm,
include social media influencers and different people who will advocate for nuclear, who will play the exact role that these NGOs play. Instead of opposing government, they'll have people who support government, who hold government accountable in ensuring that these power plants are developed and people get jobs and get power, because we know part of the us not getting many of foreign investment in this country, the first thing they complain about is load shedding. They say it's not lucrative to build a sustainable company here because of our energy issues. Now we have an alternative.
mm,
Most of these countries, when they invest in South Africa, where do they go? Cape Town. Why do they go to Cape Town? Because there's a power plant, and they have very sustainable,
mm,
efficient energy produced. And beyond everything, Quebec, the nuclear power plant, is the third largest and biggest contributor and payer of rates in the Western Cape. So the Cape Town municipality, the municipality of the Premier, they benefit a lot from it being there. So I realized the mission at hand, and I realized the importance of it. And when I came back, I realized that Africa, specifically as a continent, because most of the issues that are stagnating our
mm.
development is founded on energy. We have a
Yeah,
huge load shedding problem. We have a huge power problem. So
yeah.
yes, that's
Habib, you're raising quite important issues, and clearly the debate around nuclear energy is also political, and the mere fact that you are mentioning it, that it looks like the Western Cape gang, they, because of their benefiting, they don't want other provinces to develop, and that is why they keep on fighting the government against developing more nuclear energy sites across the country. I'll send an SOS to Minister Ramokgopa. He clearly doesn't have lawyers who are clued up with this subject. That's why he withdrew. But can you tell us just briefly the highlights of your presentation in Russia during the summit?
So the first thing, the first thing that is important is that so there's nuclear power plants. Nuclear power plants is essentially the big, more like a power station that produces electricity. However, for country for a much more cost-effective way, like for instance for cities and municipalities, there has been a solution that has been put forward where they are now developing what is called the small modular reactors, which are called SMRs in short. SMRs are utilized to support municipalities, to support hospitals, malls, mines, which is much more cost effective and much more quicker to build and much more smaller and much more flexible and much more efficient. There's currently around 80 that are being developed in the world. And those most are found in America and Russia. And the development of that is very much a huge move and a shift because now it means we can develop and distribute nuclear energy and nuclear power at a much quicker and faster level. That's the first thing. The second thing is that the World Bank is now moving towards, because it used to ban the funding of any nuclear energy because of nuclear energy connected projects, but now it's in the process of lifting that ban. In COP29 just last year, nuclear energy was considered as part of the safest, cleanest, low carb efficiency energy source, meaning now it can be actually considered as a benefit to the environment and benefits to the green ecosystem. Um, in Egypt, we just developed a nuclear power plant, which is in assistance or in collaboration with Russia. Russia's a nuclear company called Rosatom. So we are in the process of developing another one, and many more African countries are now in the process of moving towards considering nuclear energy as a source that they will utilize for their electricity. There is much more resources that are being put towards funding, put towards facilitating projects and programs in advocating for nuclear, in allowing people to know more and have more knowledge about nuclear. Countries are meeting to utilize this as an alternative source. And I mean, America, obviously, now you've seen with Trump, he has left the Paris Agreement. He's removed America from the Paris Agreement, which now allows them to literally focus on developing nuclear energy.
Energy, yeah.
Exactly. So,
Thank you very much, Habibi. Sorry, man. I have so much questions for you. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. When you are enjoying a discussion, this is what happens. Time just runs away from you. But I hope that we'll get another opportunity. I think this topic needs to be unpacked a little bit more. Because of I also wanted to go into the role of the youth in this environment, because of the youth are the future. And obviously, if we are going to maximize a potential, we need to also include young people. Hopefully, we'll get another opportunity to take this discussion forward. We are now going to break for an ad break, and then we are heading right to our next guest.